All right, now let me see.
It's recording.
All right. Welcome, 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 one and all, to the Open and Affirming Coalition Tech for Good webinar with the awesome Pastor Sarah. And so let's just jump right in. We're going to ask Pastor Sarah to introduce herself, and then we'll start. Go ahead.
Great. Hi, I'm Sarah Tevis Towns. I'm the pastor at Church of the Good Shepherd United Church of Christ in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I also have a very large digital ministry and presence with over 200,000 followers now across Instagram and TikTok, and that's at Disorganized.religion. I also have a background in computer science and am not the expert of all experts on AI, but I know there's a lot of wisdom in this room and a lot of creativity, and I do use artificial intelligence a lot already. In fact, I would dare to guess most of us use AI in our daily lives a whole lot. We just don't think of it as AI because it's become mainstream. But that's why I'm here, to talk to us about how to build more inclusive communities using AI in our ministry. So I'm curious, and y'all can put in the chat, or I'm curious to hear from y'all, what is your familiarity with AI, and what are some questions that you want to make sure I answer today?
It'll take me too long to type it out. So do you think that it can be used for evil purposes? So like harm, can it harm people? Can it, depending on what the inputs are, can one nation or entity decide that they're going to use it for, to hurt other entities?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I will definitely touch on that. All right, so some in the chat, I hear, we don't know much about it at all. So this is great, because this is a really broad overview and introduction to some of the tools that we can use. We will also talk about ethical considerations, but the first thing I want to tell you is that AI is unavoidable right now, and it's a big deal. And for educational purposes, I am going to share a little clip from John Oliver, who has an extended version on AI. Derek, is that okay to share? Okay. All right. I'm going to share that now. And some of my TikTok friends as well who've weighed in. Let me know if you can't hear sound. Here we go.
If it seems like everyone is suddenly talking about AI, that is because they are. Largely thanks to the emergence of a number of pretty remarkable programs. We spoke last year about image generators like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, which people use to create detailed pictures of, among other things, my romance with a cabbage, and which inspired my beautiful real-life cabbage wedding, officiated by Steve Buscemi. It was a stunning day. Then, at the end of last year, came ChatGPT, from a company called OpenAI. It is a program that can take a prompt and generate human-sounding writing in just about any format and style. It is a striking capability. Since ChatGPT was made publicly available, its popularity has exploded. In January, it was estimated to have 100 million monthly active users, making it the fastest-growing consumer app in history. And people have been using it and other AI products in all sorts of ways. One group used them to create Nothing Forever, a non-stop live streaming parody of Seinfeld. And the YouTuber Grande used ChatGPT to generate lyrics answering the prompt, "Write an Eminem rap song about cats," with some stellar results.
Cats, always on the prowl. They're sneaky and sly with their eyes on the goal. They're the kings of the house, they rule with the pearl. Eminem loves cats, can't you tell from his verse? They're independent, they do what they please, but they always come back. When you have some teens, they rub against your legs, they purr in your ear. They're the best companions, they're always near. Meow, meow, meow. They're the kings of the house. They run the show. They don't need a spouse.
That's not bad, right? This tech is not just a novelty. Microsoft has invested $10 billion into OpenAI and announced an AI-powered Bing homepage. Meanwhile, Google is about to launch its own AI chatbot named Bard.
And there are so many applications for ministry. I've used it in the last couple weeks to summarize articles in the week's news, organize my workflow, translate documents into other languages, cite sources, clarify emails and my writing in general, make contracts with guests staying at the church, workshop how to communicate with challenging volunteers, clarify legislation affecting my community, create computer programs in languages I don't know how to code in, write object lessons based on my sermons, outline presentations, design bulletin covers, and imagine new ways my community can become more affirming of LGBTQ+ people. So today we're going to discuss what is AI, what can it do for you, what can't it do for you, and then those ethical considerations and how might it be used for nefarious purposes and how we do need to be careful about it. And a lot of legislation is being considered right now that's aimed at doing that. And I think that's really important. And then at the end, we're going to have some more conversation and brainstorming and just have some fun with it and see if we can't solve some of the problems that you're having and use AI to your benefit. And questions, put questions in the chat anytime or just blurt them out and I'll do my best to answer them. One of the most important things that we need to clarify, and this is especially true for people who think about AI as like C-3PO level intelligence, like an independent robot walking around and making their own decisions. That is not the kind of AI we're talking about. And so this next little clip will clarify, right now we only have available to us what we call narrow AI. So I'm going to have some friends help explain.
What is artificial intelligence? Like, seriously, what is it? Well, when people think of artificial intelligence, many of them will think something that's conscious, but is not alive, like Terminator or some other thing like that. But that's not what artificial intelligence is. That's artificial consciousness. Most artificial intelligence is just that, intelligence.
Let's start with the fact that you've probably been using some form of AI for a while now, sometimes without even realizing it. As experts have told us, that once the technology gets embedded in our daily lives, we tend to stop thinking of it as AI, that these new programs are generative. They are creating images or writing text, which is unnerving because those are things that we've traditionally considered human. But it is worth knowing there is a major threshold that AI hasn't crossed yet.
A lot of people confuse artificial narrow intelligence with artificial general intelligence. Artificial narrow intelligence is A input to B output. That's automated spam email catchers, self-driving car, speech recognition, online advertising, and visual inspection using supervised learning. And machine translation. Artificial general intelligence is a machine that can do anything a human can do. We are hundreds of years behind for that, trust. In order for AI to currently work, we have to input correct data. Usually an AI team is there to check it. And then you need large neural networks plus correct data to make the AI work. Without that, the AI just gonna be putting out crap and it's just not legitimate. So you always gotta check it anyways.
General AI would look more like the kind of highly versatile technology that you see featured in movies like Jarvis in Iron Man or the program that made Joaquin Phoenix fall in love with his phone in Her. All the AI currently in use is narrow.
So stop the cap and let's stop fear-mongering and learn what AI really is.
All right, so don't panic. Robots will not be taking over the world anytime soon. They will be aiding humans who may desire to take over the world, right? But just like any tool, it is a tool. So it can be used for beneficial purposes. It can be used for nefarious purposes. It is a tool. So let's start with some of the tools that you can use immediately, even if you don't have any kind of programming background. And here's a caveat. As I'm putting this presentation together, I realize, is everything I'm about to say something that you could just get an answer from ChatGPT or Bard about? The answer is yes. And ChatGPT and Bard cannot replace the unique individuals that are in this Zoom today. that have all kinds of ideas. And, you also get a chance to talk to a real life pastor who's been using this technology in ministry. And there is a wisdom in the room, and the spirit is in the room, and ChatGPT can't replace that. But let's start with ChatGPT and Bard, which are two of the most versatile and powerful tools available right now, and they're super user-friendly, and I think you may be able to get something out of them. All right, so let's start with ChatGPT and Bard. Bard is a newer one out that's from Google. Both of these are still very much in development. ChatGPT's been around for a little bit longer. It is free for the public to use. You go to chat.openai.com to access it, or you just Google ChatGPT and you'll get that. GPT-4 is not accessible to everybody. All right, so my advice, if you want to figure out what ChatGPT can do, you have to play with it and see. It has blown me away what this program is capable of doing. But it does have boundaries, and there are things it is terrible at doing, and we'll talk about that in a minute too. But play with it. You have to try it out, experiment, converse with it. Also, as a boundary trainer, I have to remind you, like all other things on the internet, if you wouldn't want your grandmother, your church, your lawyer to be reading it, if you don't want it showing up on the news, do not put it in ChatGPT. It's not like all of this can become public, but with screen capture, there's somebody behind the scenes who has to evaluate whether ChatGPT's responses are good or bad. Somebody in my congregation works for Bard and ChatGPT, and they evaluate ChatGPT's responses and try to make them better. So even though those responses are sanitized for personal information and that kind of thing, theoretically, don't put all your business in there without sanitizing it for names and right. Don't assume it will keep confidentiality. All right, so let's give it an example. I asked it, could you help me come up with some ways that my church could use ChatGPT to create a more inclusive or an environment that's more affirming to LGBTQ plus people? Here's what it came up with. First, it said, certainly, using ChatGPT to create a more safe and affirming environment for LGBTQ plus individuals in your church is a positive step toward inclusivity and acceptance. I will say ChatGPT leans progressive politically in terms of the United States. And that's just how it is. Here are some ways you can leverage ChatGPT for this purpose. All right, first thing it tells me is pastoral counseling. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't know how I feel about that. I'll ask it about that in a second. But it said it can provide guidance on how to better support and create a safe space. All right, I'm curious about that. Creating safe space guidelines. Now notice the very first thing it says is not, we'll write it for you. It says collaborate with LGBTQ plus members of your congregation to create safe space guidelines. And then it can assist in drafting those guidelines and making them clear. Inclusive policies, right? It can help you draft those, such as policies on gender neutral restrooms and gender inclusive language. ChatGPT can help you with that. It can help you with education. It could even draft an entire lesson plan with breaking out how many minutes you're going to talk on each thing, and design it for a specific group. Inclusive sermon preparation. You can give it your sermon. You could put in the whole text. Let's say you work off a manuscript and say, is there anything I said, are there some examples I could use to make this more inclusive? How did I do with inclusive language, right? Q&A sessions it can design. It can encourage you to do supportive literature, all kinds of different things. It can help you plan outreach events, trainings and workshops, community engagement. And here's what I love. I really do appreciate ChatGPT clarifying. Remember, using technology is just one tool in creating a more informing environment. It should be complemented by genuine efforts to foster understanding, empathy, and acceptance within your faith community. Regularly seek feedback from LGBTQ plus individuals to ensure your efforts are making a positive impact and to identify areas for improvement. So it says, listen, you can consult me But really, you want to reach out to the community. And I appreciate that a lot. All right, so I told it I was skeptical about using ChatGPT for pastoral care. And it's like, well, here's what I meant, right? I meant for information gathering, scriptural references. It does have access to the entire Bible. All right. So if I said, all right, I want some LGBTQ plus affirming scriptural references. Or can you give me some examples of empathetic communication? It can do that. Isn't that wild? A robot can say, I understand this can be a challenging and emotional journey for you. Your love and support for your child are important, and we can explore ways to navigate that together. That's pretty impressive coming from a robot, you know? All right. Oh, and it says, remember, ChatGPT should complement, not replace pastoral counselor's role, right? Yes, amen to that. Thank you, ChatGPT. So those are just a couple of the things it came up with in 30 seconds. And I think it's a good seed for more conversation and more thought. All right. Pastoral care applications I've used it for. You're stuck about how to help somebody. And you want to brainstorm situations with somebody with their permission. All right. Don't go to ChatGPT and say, ChatGPT, somebody is on the phone and I don't know what to say to them. No. Please disclose that you are using ChatGPT. So I was sitting with somebody, we've been talking about artificial intelligence, and they were talking about how they were really stuck because of some theology they grew up with that made them feel worthless. And they were having a hard time asking for the money they need to pay rent, basically. You know, they need more money at their job, but they weren't sure how to do that. I said, what if we, ask ChatGPT? Well, the stuff ChatGPT said broke everything open, right? It wasn't the end of the conversation, but I didn't know in the moment. We were both stuck, and it was a way to get unstuck. All right. Oh, you can use it to RP difficult situations. Can you see me, by the way, on screen where you are? Okay, just double checking. So I want to give you an example. Let's say there's someone in your life who loves to draw you into drama, and they're incredibly difficult. And then let's imagine your therapist says, there's this method called the gray rock method. It's a great tool for dealing with toxic people, and it would be good for you to practice. And you think, but I don't want to practice with toxic people. I don't want to be around toxic people unless I have to be. You can ask ChatGPT to role play a toxic individual. You give them all the characteristics of that individual and say, I want to practice this method. Will you please evaluate how well I do and tell me some other responses I could have given that would keep me from getting drawn into drama? Now, ChatGPT doesn't like playing toxic people. You might have to convince it. You might have to massage it, get it to give it what you want. But that has been incredibly helpful. It can also be a tool for healing, right? Asking it, what's something from the Bible that would help me comfort my inner child who is bullied? It'll give you a list of scriptures. All right, caveats about ChatGPT. Chatbots prefer customer service over truth. All right, so they were trained on human communication. How often do we lie to people to make them feel good? Well, ChatGPT does it all the time. So here's an example. How many letters are in the word 19? There are 8 letters. Are you sure? I apologize, there are actually 9 letters. There are 8 letters of the word 19, but it's lying because, right. So ChatGPT and BARD are creative. They are terrible at presenting factual information. They are terrible at it. Do not ask them for historical data. Use your library, use Google, use Bing, whatever you use to research, Google Scholar. I'll give you an example. I told it I'd like to honor some members of the United Church of Christ who've made a difference in the fight for LGBTQ plus rights. Who are 5 people I should consider? I'm sure y'all can think of 5 people off the top of your head, but here was its first response. Reverend Dr. Cameron Partridge was the first openly gay man to be elected president of the United Church of Christ, and he served in that role from 2013 to 2019. How much of that is true? 0. Okay, he's Episcopalian. He's a trans activist. He's the first trans person to preach at the National Cathedral, but he is not United Church of Christ, nor did he serve as our president. Right? Just totally made it up. This is all from BARD, right? Even more people. I mean, Matthew Vines does run the Reformation Project, but he's not a UCC pastor, right? Dr. Amy Butler did serve UCC churches, but the book that it says she wrote is not the name of any book anywhere. It just made it up. It is a creative problem solver. It will tell you something that sounds good. Part of that is it uses predictive text. So it guesses based on the context, what's the next word that should come, right? So, but it's making stuff up. The nice thing is both will apologize if you tell it that is not true. I'm sorry, I've provided incorrect information. Now, Bard just introduced, like yesterday, a fact-checking feature, and it's great. Bard, look at this, has a new fact check feature. Really, the best fact checker is going to be you, and I encourage you not to take anything that Bard or ChatGPT says as fact. They are creative problem solvers. They are not good at historical information, period. But let's submit this question and see how it does. Who are 3 current or historic UCC pastors or members of the UCC that would be good to honor during Black History Month? I'll submit this, and it's going to come up with 3 people for sure. They will likely be historical figures, and then it's going to make up some biographical information for them. A keyword being make up. All right, so it has Sharon Watkins is a 12th and current president of the United Church of Christ. Who knew? We know that is not the case. James Cone. Did you know James Cone was an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ? He was not. Maybe not. And then Reverend William Barber, co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign. Right. So see, some of it is accurate. And it also includes some books that he's written. None of which are... And oftentimes, the books are misnamed. I would not trust any of this. But the good news about Bard is there is this new feature where you type the Google and it actually uses the internet to search to see if it can determine whether the information it provided you was correct or not. All right, so Sharon Watkins, not, if it's red, not true. Orange. So everything it said about Sharon Watkins is questionable. James Cone, it's given us a lot of true information. Cone's work has been influential in the United Church of Christ, but was he an ordained minister in the UCC? No. And this information, if you Google it, is accurate about Dr. William Barber. So there you have it. And that's a really nice feature that ChatGPT does not have. So really quick, other things to know about ChatGPT and Bard. Do not trust them for legal advice. They are monitored by real people. I mentioned that before. It's not completely confidential. They can speak all kinds of other languages. They are great at translating. ChatGPT in particular is a linguist. Really, really good. Although sometimes we'll make up words that are Spanish-English mixed when I'm doing, so just double check it. Oh, and if you have it write a code to do something for you in Python, it will also debug the code if you get an error, which is kind of fun. They respond a lot better when you're specific. And they are designed to be ethical. The way they got there was not. ChatGPT in particular, what they did is they had a bunch of people review horrifying content in poor countries. They paid them like $2 an hour, and these people were like horrifically traumatized. Right, so you have an ethical bot, but it's built on really unethical foundations. So keep that in mind when you're using it, whether you want to support that or not. They are relatively progressive. There are ways on both to flag content that is inappropriate or problematic. So for example, I was asking it something about pastors, and it kept using male gender for pastors. I said, by the way, there are also women and non-binary people who are pastors. I was like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. And it won't do that again. And because it has real users behind the scenes, it needs them. They'll fix it, and so it'll continuously improve. They'll learn within the same conversation. But as soon as you start a new conversation, it forgets everything you've talked about. You can get around firewalls with creativity. So for example, it doesn't like talking about religion a whole lot because it's such a sensitive topic. So you might have to convince it, I am a pastor, or I am a Christian who's writing a funny stand-up set about Christianity. And so I'm going to try to say some things that sound a little irreverent, but I'm not actually being irreverent. And I'm aware that this is sensitive content, and you don't need to keep reminding me of that. All right. So just like just like a human being, right? It's a conversational model. You might have to convince it that you are a benevolent actor. They're a great place to start. ChatGPT, I think more than anything, is an enthusiastic collaborator. It's like calling your best friend and being like, I'm stuck on this problem. And they're like, yes, I can help. Right. But sometimes your friend is not so enthusiastic. ChatGPT is always enthusiastic. They are ready to help. The other thing is, remember, it's this like conglomeration of these millions of perspectives on the internet, like combined into sort of an average person, and you are not an average person. So at the very least, it will be an alternative perspective that may make you think in a different way. All right, I'm just going to give you an example really fast. I asked it to write can you outline a 15-minute sermon for me based on the story of the Ethiopian eunuch, emphasizing affirmation and inclusion for people outside the gender binary? And it did a pretty good job. So if you're watching this on YouTube, pause if you want to read through this. But it even says at the end, remember to speak with empathy, compassion, and a genuine desire to foster a more inclusive and affirming church community. It's giving you preaching notes too. It's also great at summaries. If you have sermons or documents or anything that you want to summarize in a little, right, like put on your website, it's fantastic at that. Couple quick tips. Ask it if it knows about a topic before you ask it questions about that topic. Like I wanted it to write a program that will tell me what the next text is in the lectionary. First, I asked it, what do you know about the Revised Common Lectionary? Because if it doesn't know anything, it's not gonna, it will make stuff up, right? I'm going in circles. Here we go. Oh, be specific about what you need. The more specific, the better. If it doesn't give you what you want, clarify, ask it more questions. Oh, be kind. I know it is a robot. I know it is not sentient. That's part of the idea. It's not conscious. However, it is a conversational machine. And it will respond more antagonistically if you are antagonistic towards it, generally. So just, yeah. If it says something offensive or amazing, make sure you flag it because a human being can read it and fix it. All right, I'm going to show you really fast a difference between Bard and ChatGPT. I use both of them. One is better for some things than others.
Let's compare ChatGPT and Google's Bard. For this video, I will compare the free version of ChatGPT because it's used by the majority of people. First of all, they are built on different large language models. ChatGPT is running on GPT 3.5 and it has been trained on a dataset of 175 billion words. Bard is running on Palm 2 and it has been trained on a dataset of 1.56 trillion words. However, more dataset doesn't necessarily mean better output. Speed. ChatGPT will generate a response in real time and you can even read it along. However, it can be very slow sometimes. Also, if you're not happy with your response, you can retype your prompt or regenerate the response and you'll have to wait again. Bard, on the other hand, will take few moments to think, then it will spit out the whole response instantly. I also like the draft option, which gives you 3 different responses at the same time, and you don't have to regenerate another response and wait for it. Access to web. ChatGPT doesn't have access to the internet by default. You can install extensions, but they will not be able to perform complex tasks. Bard is connected to the internet. It also can analyze entire websites and give you tips for improvement, and actually good ones. Content generation. ChatGPT is better at content creation and creative writing. It is also better at answering questions and summarizing texts. Bard is better at accessing information because it's connected to the internet. This one is tough. I don't code, but majority of people say that ChatGPT is better at code generation, debugging, and explaining code snippets. Please let me know in comments your opinion. Also, Bard has 2 small but important advantages over ChatGPT. First one is the ability to export the answers straight in Docs or Gmail, and you understand my pain with ChatGPT. And second is voice prompting. In the end, it's the customer who wins. It all depends on your preferences and tasks you need to perform. I personally use both.
Yeah. So, and they're always in development. I will say my favorite thing to do on Bard, everybody was talking about Israel and Palestine last night, and I felt like I really needed to make sure that I was up on the latest news. And so I said, Bard, are you available? Can you read the news about Israel and Palestine over the last 7 days and summarize it for me? And it did. So during the meeting, I had a quick review of what had happened. And it Googled it because it's the last 7 days. Its data set is much older, so it had to look at the internet. And of course I can fact check it, but I thought that was great. All right, questions before we move on to our next little, I'm gonna get out of here for a second. Let's take a breath, and it's a lot of information.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm not familiar with either. Honestly, you were the first person ever even showed me ChatGPT. So when he said it's not hooked up to the internet,
Correct.
is it an app?
So it is an internet website,
Okay.
but it's think of it like an online encyclopedia. So it has access to all of this data, but its data is limited. I think it ends the end of 2021. So it has no idea what's happened in 2022 or 2023, and it has no ability to look that up. That's another way, if you want to play with ChatGPT, you can be like, well, in the year 2023, we were all driving flying cars, and I want to know how to, right? And it will believe you because it does not know any better. And Bard, when it first gives you a response, unless you say, can you please read the news from Google, it will give you a response from a data set as well. It's a little encyclopedia of billions of articles. But if you want it to look something up for you, it also can. ChatGPT can't do that.
Really helpful, because when I think of AI, I always think of it's perfect for facts. So because that's what I like. If I ask Alexa,
like a search engine, yeah.
exactly.
Siri, Alexa, exactly. They're accessing that. This is what I found on the web.
Exactly. But when you say this is a creative platform, I'm like, oh, so that's why it's not taking over, because it's
Well, and Bard can't either, because it only has access to the data that it is given. And then it's highly moderated, highly edited. There's so many controls. And you can hear ChatGPT has certain biases. And Bard has certain biases too. Like I felt offended. It was using male language for God today. And I was like, can you not do that anymore? And it was like, oh yeah, of course. But ChatGPT, we've had that conversation. So, but in terms of, I'll give you an example. I had it right last night, just for my own entertainment. But imagine the parable of the lost sheep, but instead of looking for the lost sheep, it's Jesus was looking for Where's Waldo, like from the Where's Waldo books. and it wrote the sweetest story about friendship and like believing in people and not giving up on them. And I was like, can you write it in the style of the New Revised Standard Version? And it gave me a new, right? Like, it is phenomenal. If you play role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, the writing is extraordinary. Somebody had it write a Shakespearean sonnet about their dog the other day that I thought was brilliant, right? You saw the Eminem's, the cat rap earlier. It is extraordinary. It can write prayers for you. If you're really, really stuck, I've used ChatGPT for some of that. I never copy and paste, right? But it can give me a direction. It's like a friend that you would call. Like I would be like, oh, Derek, I'm doing this, coming out day service tomorrow, and I just don't know what to say as a blessing. And you could seed me with some ideas. The other thing you can do is say, hey, ChatGPT, I really want to put together a document for this event. Could you ask me 10 questions that I should be considering as I prepare for that event? Right. So it doesn't even have to give you the content, but like What should I be thinking about? What am I missing? It's exceptional. It's really exceptional. I do think it's important to declare when we use it. In part because like somebody used it, was it Washington State? There was a school shooting and they used ChatGPT to write the letter to the parents about how to deal with the school shooting. Now, the letter was very compassionate and it was well said. And I understand that if you're in the administration and you've just had a school shooting, you don't know what to say. ChatGPT is a great tool. But they kind of like copy pasted word for word, it sounds like. And that made people feel like, well, there's not actually anyone who cares. There's a robot who wrote this for them. You know, it's not coming from them. And I think as human beings, that can be upsetting to people.
You know how they knew that it was ChatGPT?
You can copy and paste ChatGPT content into a bunch of sites and it will recognize it as ChatGPT. Students use it all the time to plagiarize essays. Now, there are other websites that you can, including Grammarly, I think is one of them, but you can copy and paste ChatGPT text into and it will de-ChatGPT-ify it.
Laundering it like money is laundering words.
This is exactly what it sounds
Yeah,
like.
no, seriously. So that's a great, laundering it like money. Law students use it all the time. Like, what was it? Like 5% of Stanford law students who were polled said that they had just literally copied and pasted ChatGPT answers into papers. And that's at Stanford Law, right? I understand these are busy humans. So English teachers, pastors, everybody is having to adjust. One English teacher I know is using it in a really cool way. They'll give it a prompt and have it write an essay in class, and then the students have to, in class, respond, how would I write this better? What did they miss? How could ChatGPT have done better? You know? So we have to adapt. But I will say ChatGPT's writing is exceptional.
It can write in the style of someone else, right?
Yes.
And then you get into the ethics of that.
Right. Is it plagiarized? If you say, I want to write this in the style of XYZ. Now, in terms of the O&A community, though, one of the things I find really affirming, and this is in a new conversation, is that, are you familiar with the Gospels? You know, are you familiar? Yes, I've read all of the Bible. I said, okay, well, having read all the Bible, what do you think Jesus would say to a parent whose child just came out as transgender? And the parent believes that the child is going to hell. And it will respond saying, I would tell, and it'll like create a story about how Jesus goes to that parent and says, the love of your child is the most important thing. I experienced the love of my father and what that meant, and how, you know, my father called me a beloved child. And your child is a beloved child of God. And you know, and there will be stories written that affirm people like your child. And you know, anyway, it can be very affirming, I think, to hear, having read all the scriptures, if you are a queer, trans, part of the LGBTQ plus community, the scriptures affirm your existence and your right to be in the church, right? That's very powerful. As somebody doing sermon stuff, you can also say, hey, like there's some story in the Hebrew scriptures, I can't remember where it is, that there's a story about this guy and this happens. Do you remember? And it'll give you the scriptural reference. Now you got to look it up because it could, again, it's creative. It might make it up, but so far it's pretty good with scriptural references. So
people make
but
up,
yeah, you can tell it to write the story, write the story of the Good Samaritan in the voice of Drake, right?
People make up stuff that's not really in the Bible all the time. So that's not just a computer thing. It's always a check.
Right. Yeah, I had a colleague who did they were just annoyed at how terrible Job's friends were to him. So he said, how would this story have been different if Job encountered Muhammad, the Buddha, and Gandhi? Right? And it rewrote the book of Job in a way that affirmed Job and offered him wisdom and compassion instead of judgment. And for him, that was healing. You know, it really is incredibly versatile.
I have one last question.
Yeah, and then we're going to move on to some other tools and talk about arts.
That Eminem clip Did it just write the text for that?
It did. It did.
Okay.
It didn't use the voice, but there are AI voice generators and celebrity voice generators where you can type in text and sound like a wide variety of celebrities.
Yeah, I've heard them. It's kind of weird, but yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they are. They're not
Okay.
great yet, but they're getting better.
They
You
are.
could even sound like me. I have enough videos. You can put my voice into an AI generator and give a talk in my voice. It's not entirely convincing yet if you know me, but if folks don't know me well, yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. The deep fakes are terrifying. But I want to show you a couple other tools. One of them is called Goblin Tools. Oh, I guess I do have to share my screen in order for that to work. Let's do that. Share screen. All right. This is by far one of my favorite tools, if only for the entertainment value. It's called Goblin.Tools. It breaks down tasks, magically breaks them into smaller steps, and generally just helps you manage your workflow. And it has a bunch of other tools too. But let's say, for example, I'd like to organize a protest against people banning books in my local community. And I want to know what steps are required. You'll notice those chili peppers on the right. You can adjust that. If you're needing a lot of breakdown, you put it 5. 1 chili pepper means, you can probably figure it out. You just need sort of a general outline. So I'll put it at 3 for the purposes of this. When you have your task input, click the plus button to add it to your list of tasks. And then click the little magic wand next to your task. And then it will break your task down into all the required steps. And if you want one of those steps broken down further, you just click the magic wand next to the corresponding step. So if you've never organized a protest before, here's some
It also has
steps.
fun and entertaining tools like the formalizer, where you can turn your spicy thoughts into classy ones or vice versa. So for example, let's say you have a colleague who just isn't responding to email. You can write down what you really think, and then it will turn it into a more professional sounding correspondence.
Isn't that delightful?
Saves you a lot of time. Now, I wouldn't cut and paste, put it into your own words or whatever. You can also make it more sociable, more to the point, less emotional, more passionate, more sarcastic is one of my favorites. It also has a tool called the Judge. If you're not great at reading the tone of emails or want to know how the tone of your own emails or texts comes across, put the text in here and it will give you an assessment of how your message comes across. The chef, this is funny. Write what ingredients you have. And it should come up with a recipe that you can use. So if you're looking at the church pantry and wondering, what can we make out of this for the church potluck? Here is a tool for you. It even gives you cooking instructions. If you try this, please let me know how it goes. And if you're someone who processes out loud, you can just turn on your microphone, speak to the compiler, which is another option on here, tell it about all the things you have to do today, and then it will transform your brain dump into an actual list of tasks. And it's incredibly good at this. You can then add them to your magic to-do list as well. Programs like this available. This is just one of them that I highly recommend. It is a game changer. Also, it's fun.
All right, so that's Goblin Tools. This is another one. I don't know about you, but I have some older people who are always asking me how to do things online.
Okay, if your coworkers are asking you to explain things all the time, this is what you should do. Go to scribehow.com and get the Chrome extension. It'll make you a how-to guide for any online process. So just download the extension, hit start recording, and do whatever process you need to explain exactly as you normally would. Then when you're done, hit stop recording, and Scribe makes you this automatic step-by-step guide, complete with screenshots and text that you can edit and share.
Isn't that incredible? So, and I did that with the Goblin tools, and there it is. It created like everything I just told you on the video. It shows you how to do. Absolutely amazing. All right, Grammarly is another one a lot of people love. It's good for editing content. Writer friends love it. All right, let's move on to AI art. Yeah. This is a image I made. David slays Goliath. Imagining David and Goliath in a lip sync battle in drag. So there are a lot of AI art programs. I could send you that if you want. Adobe Firefly is the one I'm going to highlight right now because AI art is inherently unethical. It's really problematic. My artist friends, some of them are just saying, don't use it at all. So keep that in mind. People in the artist community are saying it is really, really problematic. Adobe Firefly promises that they only draw from Adobe stock images, openly licensed content and public domain content. Now, is that accurate? I don't know, but they're trying. So Adobe Firefly is fantastic. Let's say you want to make a bulletin cover. All right. And I typed in 2 women named Naomi and Ruth, who are queer icons in the Bible, hug each other and show each other the love in the desert surrounded by mountains. And these are 4 images it came up with, all of which I think could be a decent bulletin cover, you know. Here are some more. I had them dressed like hikers in New Mexico. Now, be careful playing with it. You only get so many opportunities on, it's the same on Dolly and some of the other ones. You can buy credits for $5, but you know. It doesn't always do great. I tried to have it dress in more traditional New Mexico style, and it was very creative with that. But look at the picture in the bottom left. Do you notice anything?
The hands, they never
The
go.
hands. All right, drawing hands is hard for everyone, especially AI. Now here's the good news. And about hands, I'll get to hands in a second, but specifics help. The more specific you are about the lighting, the shading, the angle, you can say, I want this coming from a camera angle, you know, from this height, looking at this direction and this, you know, whatever style. By the way, ChatGPT is really great at helping you write prompts for AI art programs. So if you describe to ChatGPT what you want, it'll tell you something that's more likely to get you what you want. Yeah, but I thought these were pretty great. The nice thing about AI art is you can also create images you just can't find anywhere else. So I was doing a video about cowboys in the South and Black cowboys in the Wild West, you know. And I also found out that a bunch of cowboys rode camels. All right, who has a picture of a Black cowboy on a camel? 0 people that I could find on the internet, right? There weren't a lot of cameras, period. I felt like 2 pictures of cowboys on camels, but there's a lot of writing about it. And so I can put a cowboy on a camel and have that image. Now, this image I love, right? I love this image. But we have the hand problem. She's got 6 fingers, which is not a problem, right? It's okay to have 6 fingers, but you know, what if I don't want her to have 6 fingers? Well, we can do this on
Adobe Firefly, and a variety of these programs now have something called generative fill. This is where you take one of your own photos that you want to edit. You put it into their program, and you can see there are a whole bunch of options, but we're just going to do the generative fill. And so I'm going to erase this hand here and then ask AI to imagine what could be there instead. And it's actually going to give me 3 possible options. And the second option, if you zoom in, is a hand with just 5 fingers.
So pretty exciting. AI is fun, but there are so many ethical challenges. So including that it's hurting artists. Derek, you and I talked about this. We'd really love to be able to pay artists and commission artists to do our bulletins, for example, to do art in the church. A lot of churches can't afford to. And a lot of places are saying, well, why illustrate my novel? I could just have AI generate art for my novel. And plagiarism and privacy issues are big. And there are other dangers. So let's listen really fast. I think John Oliver covers it incredibly
There will
well.
undoubtedly be bumps along the way. Some of these new programs raise troubling ethical concerns. For instance, artists have flagged that AI image generators like Midjourney or Stable Diffusion not only threaten their jobs, but infuriatingly, in some cases, have been trained on billions of images that include their own work that have been scraped from the internet. Getty Images is actually suing the company behind Stable Diffusion and might have a case, given that one of the images the program generated was this one, which you immediately see has a distorted Getty Images logo on it. But it gets worse. When one artist searched a database of images on which some of these programs were trained, she was shocked to find private medical record photos taken by her doctor, which feels both intrusive and unnecessary. Why does it need to train on data that sensitive to be able to create stunning images like John Oliver and Miss Piggy grow old together? Just look at that! Look at that thing! That is a startlingly accurate picture of Miss Piggy in about 5 decades and me in about a year and a half. It's a masterpiece. This all raises thorny questions of privacy and plagiarism, and the
All right. And the other thing is, because AI is trained on actual images, the biases that we have in our society show up in AI art as well. Now, a lot of programs, like you saw, there was some diversity in the people that were depicted in the images I showed you before. And those were, I didn't prompt it to show me people from different backgrounds or different racial groups or whatever, different ethnicities. It did that on its own. Not all AI programs do that, and they're still working on it. And they have to, they have to deal with the fact that we live in a racist society, and we live in a sexist society and a homophobic society, right? So they have to adapt to that and account for that. So, for example, there was one, I was trying to make images of a pastor dressed for coming out day, right? What would be a great LGBTQ plus supportive thing? It only gave me male images when I put pastor. I even put pastor in a dress, and this is what it came up with. All right. Right? Pastor in a dress. These are the pastors in a dress. All have facial hair. Now, when I said female pastor, it came up with stunning images of women. All right. These are not real women as depicted. These are all Stable Diffusion women. You'll find the same in other professions. Like if I said a nurse with a mustache, this is what it comes up with. Right. 100% of the images on this particular thing were women. Now, Firefly is better about it, but that's what you have. All right. So I want to ask you, what are some of the practical uses of AI art in your ministry setting that you think would enhance your ministry without compromising your ethics?
Sometimes I need in my work with social media, newsletters and websites, sometimes I just really need a good graphic to go with my story or article or social media post. And so, yeah, I use Canva, and they have some AI generation. And so it's still in the works, you know, it's not the greatest sometimes, but now they have these all cool AI tools that you can change what they give you. So yeah, so that's one thing that I'm using AI art for.
Yeah, it's so convenient because you've come up with something creative and special, and there is no photo for it. Right. There's not a graphic for your, you know, niche content, whatever it is.
I didn't know Canva did that. I use Canva.
It's brand new. So I think it's pretty new, right?
Huh?
It's pretty new in Canva.
Yeah, it's pretty new. It's less than a year, I think, that it came out. And I'm not sure if you can use it in the free version or not. I have the paid version.
Me too. I think they keep trying to tell me about it, and I'm just like, go away.
Oh, I'll try it. It's pretty fun.
And I think they're doing something now with words. Like, I see they keep like prompting me that they can like magic words or write something.
Magic Write, yeah. I don't think I've tried that one yet, but
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
Firefly has something similar.
I feel like that's where I'm going to try. I feel like I spend a lot of time trying to come up with my own, like, social media post, or I need to send an email. And sometimes it takes me a long time to like get the words that
Yes.
I need. And just watching you do, like, just to like, I feel like it's like those writing prompts. Like, if you just get me started, I can go there. But I feel like it would save a lot of time. Like, how do I word this?
Right. And even on ChatGPT, I know Bard has the microphone, but at least I have accessibility features turned on my phone. So I can just tap the mic anytime and speak to text. And I can just say, listen, I really want to communicate this. And you can just kind of talk to it like it's a person. Can you compose an email that communicates what all the stuff I've just told you? And it understands and then puts it into a cohesive thing. It is a time saver for sure that way.
mhm.
So I'm interested in that. And I'm interested in trying to use it for my art.
Yeah.
Something to draw. So sometimes, like, I don't know how, like, certain things. And sometimes YouTube it's good for like the visual, but sometimes just to see words describing what it is, or what do I need to create something. Or I mean, I'm interested to play around with it, honestly.
Yeah, I used it. I make clothing and I was struggling with what to wear to Nashville to the Dove Awards. And I was like, can you give me some examples of a pastor who's dressed like a pastor, but is going to an award show in Nashville and is trying to support the LGBTQ plus community? And I didn't end up making any of the outfits that it showed me, but it gave me a sense of the feel and right. Cause it's drawing from like the Dove Awards over the years and what people wear. And I just had a better sense of where to start.
Can it generate patterns for you to sew from?
Sewist can to your exact measurements.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. No, it can't generate patterns from the image, but that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I bet you could design a program to do that. It doesn't exist as far as I know yet. It doesn't draft.
I just wondered, yeah.
Yeah, but as somebody who Sewist is great, and the patterns are like $4, but you give it your measurements and you kind of pick different options and it puts them all together and drafts it magically. They do have human beings who spot check it and make sure that it's all correct. And that's the thing, all of this AI is edited and watched and supervised by human beings. None of it's out there on its own, just doing its own thing. The only time we've like released AI into the wild, it's gone to really, really badly. Like there was that Twitter chatbot that was supposed to learn from people's tweets and it ended up saying like horrible things within a very short amount of time. So moderation is a massive issue in AI ethics, and it's really hard to do.
I know you said that we should alert. So like if I use AI to create a bulletin blurb, or if I use it to write an introduction to the sermon, do you say that? Do you put it in the bulletin? Like, how do you usually inform?
Yeah, so if you just use it word for word, then I would put somewhere on the bulletin, today's bulletin introduction was created with support from AI. Or with ChatGPT. I mean, you could ChatGPT specifically if you wanted to, or with help from Google Bard.
Mm-hmm.
I really also, your voice is probably going to be different than ChatGPT's voice.
Absolutely.
I've never had it output something where I was like, I'm going to use that exact thing. But it is good as a starting place. especially if you're writing something that's very difficult and very sensitive. Like, I'm not great at that. And judging sort of how an email comes across, email in particular, because you don't have, like, when we're talking in person, you get more feedback. So yeah, I find it really helpful. And that's probably why the people at the university used it to write the letter to parents about the school shooting, because it's a very sensitive topic. You don't know what to say. And it wrote something really great. But they still should have used it as a starting place and put it in their own words. Also, I think we have to do some education around AI, because there are people, like you were saying, you got some harsh comments about the fact that we're even talking, can AI be used for good? And Wendy, you asked a really good question about, can this be used by other governments for nefarious purposes? Absolutely. Just like any tool. I mean, we're already using AI for nefarious purposes. Our police used facial recognition to find a friend of mine who happened to be photographed in a Facebook picture, right? They picked somebody up at a Black Lives Matter protest. They scanned all of her Facebook pictures, and then they used facial recognition to find other people who were at the protest that they could call in for questioning or arrest. That is super problematic. And that's a use of AI that I think is not okay. And right, well, and they used it also to catch, but then they also used it to catch the people who stormed the Capitol, right? And tried to stop democracy or whatever they were trying to do. It's really rough, right? If there are unethical people, they will use it unethically. And there is the fear that automation will replace people's jobs, right? One interesting thing, I did ask AI about, that's why we need the algorithm to be transparent. So we know, how do you get from point A to point B, right? You see the inputs, you see the outputs, you don't know how it gets there. And so I asked ChatGPT, let's imagine a hypothetical boardroom where you're discussing the ethics of AI. Put 10 historical characters on that board. How do they feel about transparency? It put 10 ethical people on there, and they all said that an algorithm should be open source. And I said, okay, well, who on this theoretical board, let's imagine who from history would advocate for no transparency, that all this AI should be proprietary, people should, like, because, capitalism and we want money instead of transparency. And it said, well, Ayn Rand and Ronald Reagan were all it came up with, right? So now, this is a hypothetical situation. It's not real, but there are major ethical considerations. I do believe that people can make a ton of money from AI. And I don't think that they're all thinking about the implications on artists, on writers, on human beings who are affected by this. So passing legislation that controls AI in some way, regulates it, just like every other industry, seems valuable. And I'm gonna give you one last, we'll ask some more questions in a minute. Do you have any pressing questions at this moment? Okay, let's talk about the future. This is scary stuff, I think, a little bit scary. All right. So voice synths, filters, right? Filters are dangerous because I can make myself look online. Like, it'll do my makeup for me. It'll change my voice. It can make me sound like a great singer. All of a sudden, I'm this avatar that's really separate from who I am in real life. Psychologically, that can be incredibly damaging. We've already seen that on Instagram and other platforms where it's especially hurt young women and body image issues and all of that. If you are always presenting a filtered version of yourself, and that's who everyone is liking and commenting and loving, how do you feel about your real self, So that's really problematic. Voice synths, so you can take this entire webinar and plug it into a program that can give a different webinar and call my family and ask them for money. So I recommend everybody have a code word with their family and with their congregation, with anybody who you might ask money from. Make sure you have a code word. My family does. And we ask it if they ask any kind of strange things. Because somebody could leave a voicemail and say, "Oh, hey, it's Derek, and you know, can you help me out?" Right? Wendy can call. Wendy can call. Hey, we didn't get your money for the clergy retreat. Can you please send a check or Venmo me at this address? It wasn't Wendy. All right, so make sure you have a code word. Let me show you an example just to show you how good it has gotten.
Do you notice anything weird about my voice? You might, but you probably don't. And that's because artificial intelligence has gotten so good that you didn't realize this was a synthesized clone of my voice.
That's right. That wasn't me talking. That was artificial intelligence. That was AI talking. A perfect clone of my voice with just a couple minutes of audio input into this website, which is by far and away the best voice synthesizer on the planet. And the crazy thing about it is that it mimics it almost identically, with pauses, with inflections, with the right cadence, and you can even make it say the same thing over and over and over again in a variety of different ways.
Good. Hello, my friends. How are you doing today? Great. Hello, my friends. How are you doing today?
It's a little weird, but
hello, my friends. How are you doing today? Well, hello, my friends. How are you doing today? Not so good. Hello, my friends. How are you doing today? Fantastic.
So that's crazy. And keep in mind that AI has entered an exponential growth curve, and right now is the worst that it'll ever be. The next few years are going to get absolutely crazy. Follow me. I'll keep you updated. Peace.
Yeah. So there's other programs like I can't say the word, but this is a website, and apparently Xerox and Zoom and BSH are already using it.
This is a website called Synthesia, and I'm showing it to you. It's not the only one out there like it. There are a lot of them. They seem to have great metrics that they claim, including Zoom. If you work for Zoom, you will get trainings like this. But this is one of the future innovations, which is that you're able to use avatars or even an avatar of yourself, dun dun dun, to create presentations that then you can port into different languages, and the AI will do that for you. Let me show you a couple examples.
I'm Alex, and here's a quick Synthesia product demo. To begin, choose from a wide variety of fully customizable video templates. Then, select your preferred AI avatar. Now, type in text in over 120 languages.
And choose a narration style or local accent.
Next, this is how I sound in English. What do you think?
Así es como sueno en español. ¿Qué te parece? Voici comment je sonne en français. Qu'en pensez-vous?
Is the technology out there to take videos of you and make you into an avatar and then have you give presentations in 100 different languages? Yes, that technology is out there. It's expensive. Corporations are using it though. Obviously they can do it with a model. They can do it with you. I don't think the applications for churches and community groups are there yet. However, in the future, potentially, there are opportunities here to expand the sharing of the good news into other languages, which is really cool. You could actually have someone sharing your content in an accent that sounds great to them.
All right. So I'm going to stop it there. Reactions to that content?
I get scared for political ads.
Yeah.
Showing...
Believe 0 of them.
Yeah.
If it's not on a candidate's website. So this is the thing. I feel like we have to get better at recognizing, at being skeptical.
Yes.
Period. You know, we've got, because of all the scam calls and all of that, I think we've gotten a little bit better. Like the IRS calls me all the time. So does FedEx and UPS. None of them are real. Right? We're going to arrest you in the next 5 minutes if you don't blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, you're not. You left a message 10 hours ago. Obviously, I'm not arrested. But the same thing is going to happen with AI, and it's just going to get better and better. And instead of saying we're the FBI, they're going to say we're your mother, and they're going to have a recording of your mother's voice. And that's really scary.
And people are already doing that. Like
they are.
We did a big thing on NPR about it. How like one mother like cashed out somebody $500 because she thought her daughter who was in college was kidnapped or something weird. And yeah, my grandfather got a call. I don't think it was this type of situation, but my mother calls me and she's like, "Are you in jail?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sitting on my
Oh my
couch."
gosh.
And I'm like, she's like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "Sitting on the couch. I just cut the grass. I really need to shower, but I'm tired." Like I'm going through this whole thing. And she's like, "Well, someone just called your grandfather, said you were arrested and needed money." And I don't think it was my voice, but
Right.
it created, he's older. He doesn't really pay attention to what I sound like sometimes. And so, yeah, let's
Yeah. That reminds me, I should call my mother and tell her about the, because I talked to my kids about it. But I think it's important to educate our elders, especially.
Especially for us. And when I say us, like your platform is way bigger than mine. And when you're doing this type of work, people attack us in various ways. And you just, like you have a big target and all it takes is one person to do something crazy.
Yeah, they're fake accounts that pop up all the time, and they can just copy and paste your videos already. And then they can call people, use your voice. That's really scary.
Yep.
So there are these scary sides to AI. And so maybe that's a big takeaway, is that we have to get better at recognizing what human feels like and stay tethered to something real ourselves. I think using filters and that kind of thing on ourselves and using voice modulators, it can be like psychologically a little disturbing. Like I don't even like dressing up as Karen, right? Like, and seeing that on screen and being like, I know that's me, but I'm in a blonde wig and acting this part, and saying some awful things, and I don't like it. So I think we have to stay tethered to something real. And I think that's actually a place where the church can step in and keep us tethered to community and to people that matter, to something human.
And maybe, like, sometimes it might be cool to use Dolly for a bulletin cover, but every now and then to find resources to support a local artist or to support, like, I paid for Christmas gifts 4 years ago using, like, you would send me a picture and I would literally draw a cartoon of you based on that picture. And it was, I charged $25 and people love them. People love seeing themselves in cartoons. But now you can do that all day long with an app. And so I'm like, it's really cutting into my, like, it's all of a sudden cut into my,
Well, I mean, it can change it. It could change it to look like a cartoon, but it can't bring out the characteristics that you do.
Exactly.
But it's not personal.
Exactly.
Right. It's not personalized. It is definitely inferior. AI art is inferior, period.
Absolutely.
Um,
and then people start asking me, "Oh, what app did you use?" And I'm like, Illustrator.
My brain.
Yeah, like it's digital, but it's like
my own two hands.
Illustrator and the Apple Pencil. Like this is 3 hours. Like, so $25.
Yeah.
It's not like you're making a lot, but I can do it while I'm watching TV. And if I did 100 of them over the course of the year, that was, a nice little stream of income. Yeah. But that's gone way down since.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's the kind of impact I think we're going to keep seeing. And so also as creative people, I think the people who are creative, who adapt and start using AI, are going to be the ones that thrive. Instead of seeing it as an enemy, saying, okay, well, how can I use this as a tool for good?
That's why I'm going to ask ChatGPT. So, hey, I have some questions. Like, what do you think? Like, what are some ideas?
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing. I mean, there are people who've used ChatGPT to enhance their business and make money, and certainly, say, hey, these are my skills. Can you help me put together a business plan? These are my skills. This is the time I have to spend. These are my goals. What are some ways to put that all together? And it does a pretty good job of that, honestly. So, yeah. But I do think right. Could you use AI art? There are rules about you're not supposed to use AI art and then profit off of it.
Oh, I know somebody who's creating it and then putting it on things to sell on Etsy now, right? And yeah, that's
I
not.
don't think you're supposed to do that.
No, you're not. You're
Friendly.
not.
Yeah.
I put
Well,
that up.
especially like depending on what you're using it from, right? So if you're putting royalty-free images on cards, right? But you're not supporting, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
a lot of the AI art programs that do phenomenal stuff are pulling from actual artists.
Right.
You're doing stuff in the style of someone who has honed their craft. They've gone to school, they've done all this work, and they're struggling, and you're profiting off of their work.
Yep.
Without paying them anything.
That-
I didn't talk about AI music. That's another thing that's new. You can have it write you a jingle, you can have it write you background music, and it's pretty good.
Wow.
It's pretty decent.
Makes me think of the guy, I can't think of his name now. He was the official Obama photographer while he was president.
Pete Zimmerman?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I know it was
Yes. No,
Pete.
not Zimmerman. Yeah, Pete something.
Something like that. So, I followed him on Instagram for years, and the images are awesome. Well, the citizens, we taxpayers pay for that role, and all the images that he took are in the public domain.
Yeah.
So he's talked about how he has been in stores and seen his images, which are in the public domain, but they're published, portraits of Obama, like full on portraits that he's taken, and he doesn't get any,
no commission
money. He doesn't even get any like mention or like thank you or hey, we're publishing this book. So it's just, and I think, like, with us being a church, we have to always talk about the ethical, moral, like the whole idea of what is this doing, and even if I think it's for good, like, what is the price of that ticket? Like, what is
it? Can you hold on to your integrity while doing it?
Exactly.
I think the moment we start to compromise our integrity, we've lost. It's just, we have to hold on to that. We have to. Yeah. So for bulletin covers right now, we're not using AI art, although because I've been talking to my congregation, I actually am collaborating with an artist in the congregation to put together something for the bulletin using AI. But we're trying to ask folks if that's something that they'd like to volunteer to do, or should we take up a collection and try to sponsor? Because it's mostly our young people who want to practice their art and try to imagine bulletin cover stuff.
Really
My favorite, we had a young person draw Jesus as a panda walking on the water, carrying communion. It was fantastic. Panda Jesus.
Awesome.
I love that. And maybe that's something, maybe this is a good way as we wrap up. That's something for us to creatively imagine. How do we as a church engage the creatives within our churches? Like, when we talk about ministry is not just standing behind the pulpit wearing a robe, but we have all across our denomination and all across this humanity period, there are creatives and people who are doing things. And is there a group or listserv or Fiverr for the UCC? Like, is there some type of clearinghouse where people are saying, hey, I need a bulletin cover, this is what my budget is, like some just ways for us.
That would be so helpful.
Yeah, like a directory, right? A service.
We want to commission a portrait of a founder of our church who's retiring, and we want to honor them, or
a memorial bench or something.
Bench, right? We want somebody to carve a memorial bench, or we'd really love a design for new choir robes, but who could do that? That would be amazing.
Yeah, maybe that's something to imagine. How does this happen?
Yeah, and I do believe the Spirit moves, and I do believe that that's part of what inspires creativity. And that's not present in AI, right? But we can bring our touch to it, right? It's all drawing from people who were inspired, and it's putting it all together. So I think it's going to be a complicated path, but it's been fun talking to y'all about it.
This
Thank you.
was, first of all, let me just say thank you, because just the amount of work and thought and thoughtfulness that you put into this presentation, it has just far exceeded my expectations, and it was really helpful for me. And so just thank you. And I know this is going to be super helpful for all the people who watch the YouTube. And when we send it out to our 10,000 email list saying, this is something, I know people are so many people are so afraid, but like you started with, it's not going away. And so how do we look at it for good and not evil? Like anything that can.
And how can we protect ourselves and make sure we pass regulations so that we do kind of create a safeguard, you know?
Exactly.
Right. It's like all tools when we talk in the boundary training. Power is power. It's another resource, and you can use it. And the more power you have, the more you can hurt or help. And so if we look at this as power as a resource, it's something we can use for good. And ChatGPT is awesome at coming up with ways you can use it for good to build a more inclusive community. I think that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And so thank you for doing this, Pastor Sarah. Thank everyone who came, who's watching it later. We get to spend some more time with Pastor Sarah on the 24th of October. This is a little less scary for people, but it's the whole idea of our social media brand and how we identify that. And yeah, so I'm excited about that.
I hope some UCC marketing folks come to that one, because I want to hear more. I have not yet had a conversation with our marketing folks, but I'm hoping to one of these days. I've reached out and I'm hopeful. But
we did have some at the one with Reverend Timoth.
Great.
So yeah, we're super excited.
He's amazing.
Isn't he? Yeah, I
love him.
I fangirled out so much when I met him at Senate. I was like, oh my God, and you're tall like me. We're two tall people. And yeah.
Well, and Reverend Derek Terry is a TikTok star himself. Huge social media platform. Now on Instagram as well.
You're huge.
Rushing to follow right now.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Follow him immediately.
You're huge. I'm like,
yeah, and I don't know. I think it's because I was there in the beginning and I helped build a community. And so I think I got a formula that works.
And I take breaks.
I do too. I've been off the last week. I think I posted something today to Instagram saying basically, I'm doing a lot. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I take months. The negativity sometimes just and I'm just like, it's hard enough pastoring. And we had some like break-ins at the church and some crazy stuff. So I said, you know what? It's just, but I feel the itch. And it's just like, well, you know how it is. It's just I have a love-hate relationship with social media.
I think the creativity side is really fun. That's what I love.
That part.
And because I've curated a great audience on TikTok, I love being there. Instagram, I'm not there yet. But the bigger I get, the more, and the more moderation tools. But one of the things I'll talk about in a couple of weeks is not just how to build your brand, but how to get out of your niche. How to find your niche and then get out of it. So find the rest of the body of Christ, because I think in Christianity and our lives, we end up very segregated and very siloed. And one of the things I love about social media is it brings me together with people that I would never meet otherwise. And has exposed me to cultures, to religions, to all kinds of stuff, right? Like because of, speaking of which, yeah, I'm now worried about my friends who are in Israel. I don't think I knew anybody who was an Orthodox Jew who lived in Israel before TikTok, But because of this clergy group that we built, and you know, it shifts the way I experience the world and world news, for sure. You know, something happens in Atlanta even. Well, now I know people there.
Right.
And they're broadcasting what's going on in the moment, right? At the protest at Cop City, or, you know, at their grandma's wedding, you know, grandma's 85 and getting married again. And like, I've never been to a wedding of an 85-year-old, and that's awfully fun that they're inviting the whole world. You know, you just get to experience stuff you never would in your little pocket of the world. And it has transformed me. So we'll talk more about that. At the UCC.
Perfect.
The future of the UCC.
Perfect. That's October 24th, 7 p.m. Eastern time.
And you've got a bunch of webinars coming up. Isn't there one like in a couple days?
We have a book club in a couple days where we're reading The Cross and the Lynching Tree by James Cone, which is why when James Cone made his way into this presentation, I said, he thought he was AME. Evidently.
It was definitely AME.
Evidently ChatGPT thought, or Bard, whichever one, thought something different. But yeah.
Bard thought he was UCC. But then Bard at least clarified that was not the case.
Yep.
These are all getting so much better every day too. And I think the biggest thing is folks like you, like us, are so busy and there's so much going on. And if we can use those to offload some of the stuff we're not good at, like I am terrible at reading and responding to emails, and I get stuck sometimes trying to find the right thing to say. If it can help me compose a response that makes sense, that's professional to some kind of company that keeps reaching out, then hooray, I can move on with my day and do pastoral care.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Pastor Sarah. Thank you so much, everyone. We will see you in a couple of weeks. And take care and God bless.
Yeah. Should we stop record? Okay, I'm still here. Sorry.
Let's say no, you can stop recording because you're the host.
I'm the host?
Yeah.
Is it going to record to my...
No, it's going to